My name is Nabaz Hera. I'm your host for today, and we're happy to have you with us as our guest on the brand new series of Media Matters under Fublis, and it's our honor to have you.
Thank you. My pleasure being here with you today.
Okay, well, before starting the questions, I would like to inform you that this interview will be published on the website of Fublis. So you can sign up to the Fublis website and then you'll get the access to watch this interview.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so shall we proceed with the questions, Emmanuel?
Absolutely.
Okay, so my very first question for you is that can you tell us about your journey as a journalist covering climate and environmental issues?
I'm a geographer by training, so I've been studying environment and climate change since I was a student. Then I began my career as a journalist actually doing maps. As a cartographer, I was doing thematic mappings for a weekly magazine and a daily print newspaper. But then slowly I started to cover more and more environmental topic. Back then in 2008, when I started, I was a US correspondent based in Washington. And it was the beginning of the Obama era. And Obama was very, very keen on trying to pass climate legislation. So since then, I've been covering climate negotiation at global level, the US attack on environment, the EU Green Deal, topic as circular economy, water security. I wrote 2 books about that, and that defined my career as today as a environmental journalist.
Very interesting. Okay, my next question for you is that what inspired you to focus on topics like energy and climate change and also sustainability?
Yeah, the ecological transition of the global economy and the global society, I think, is the most important topic of our time, and it will be the defining topic, at least for the next, for this century, for the whole century. So, studying a very important book and being in touch with great thinker like James Hansen, Bill McKibben, it inspired me really to focus on this topic, but also the relation between the science of environment and economic, the ecological crisis and the economic transition. So how the economic sector has to transform itself in the energy sector, in the food sector, in all the sectors to decrease our impact on the global environment, but also on our security.
Okay, great. Well, my next question for you is that how do you approach reporting on complex subjects like environmental policy and innovation? So,
The
what's your
first thing
thoughts about it?
First thing, I think it's important to study and to read a lot of books in order to be properly trained. Those are very complex topics and require not a major in journalism, rather more a major in environmental studies. So always being updated on science, reading books, and also talking with experts. It's a great training. It's a necessary training to be a proper journalist. There are a lot of uncertainties. There are a lot of also the science is constantly evolving. So being up to date, I think it's a secret of being a good journalist. Journalists are lucky because they always interact with the scientists, expert, thought leaders, CEOs. So people are very, very knowledgeable about those topics. So we are constantly exposed to ideas, to knowledge. But I do believe that reading books is still the perfect basis to prepare yourself for an interview, for a research, for a reportage. So it's very, very important to keep reading at least a couple of books a month on those topics, especially the beginning of a career of a journal of an environmental journalist.
Completely agree with that. Okay, my next question for you is that how has been one of the most impactful stories you have covered in your career?
I think the most important stories were at the beginning of my career when, of course, you are new to the topics and you are very, very highly impacted, not just professionally, but also as a human being. I remember, for example, I covered in 2010 the big oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. I was in Louisiana for a couple of months to cover what was still is one of the major oil disaster of recent times. Then another very important story I did was on water security along the Mekong River. I spent almost 1 month crossing from north to south The old Mekong River was impacted by the construction of large-scale dams in China, Cambodia, Laos, that not only were impacting the environment of those areas, but also the lives of hundreds of thousands of people who were displaced without proper compensation in different areas, especially in Laos and Cambodia. And also led a very, very nice book that is this atlas on the geopolitics of
Can you
water.
show the
So
book again?
yeah, absolutely. This is an Italian edition of the Geopolitical Atlas of Water. It's a very, very nice book that we have done with a cartographer and info designers, photographers as well. And this is a picture
Very
actually.
interesting book.
Yeah, yeah. We try to also create this type of journalistic narrative for books that goes beyond the mere writing. So we always embedded maps, videos, high quality photos with worldwide famous photographer. So yes, I always try to be a journalist on the ground, because if you want to narrate the environment, you need also to see and feel the environment. I do believe that to be a great environmental journalist, the first thing is to create your connection with the environment and with the people that are impacted by environmental disaster. Data, numbers are important, but without creating a spiritual connection to the natural world and to the people impacted by natural disaster, you cannot be a proper journalist. You really need to see things, to be a geographer. I'm a geographer. I visit places. I write about places.
Very interesting. Okay, my next question for you is that how do you see the role of journalism in driving awareness and action on climate change?
I think it's fundamental to have great information about the challenges that are related to climate change. Sadly, we are still discussing and protecting the science that tell us that climate change is real, it's happening, it's getting worse and worse. But also, journalism has a role to supporting the transition from a fossil fuel-based economy to a renewable energy-based, sustainable-based economy. So we need to investigate which are the best energy sources, how the transition are moving on in different areas of the world, from India to United States to Europe, because every country has its own history, its own challenges, its own bad people and good people that are trying to do the transition. And so I do believe we have a major role, especially when we talk about the transition, the technological process, the economic transformation that are undergoing, and they're massive. They're impacting millions of lives, some for the better, some for the worse. And so having high quality proper journalism can address policymaker and citizens to do the best choices in order to decrease and have the highest impact in fighting back climate change.
Well, very informative answer for our viewers. Okay, my very next question for you is that what are the biggest challenges in climate and environmental reporting today? What do you find as the biggest challenges?
I think the most important thing is to provide proper economic resources to environmental reporting, because it's very expensive, especially if you're a field reporter. Requires a lot of time to do investigation because of the complexity of the environmental issue and scientific reporting in general. There is so many things to report. I'm the editor-in-chief of a magazine. Again, if I want, I can show you. Renewable Matter. We also have an English version of the magazine. And with this magazine, we cover all the possible sector of in the economy. And we have to talk about transition in agriculture, in the energy sector, in construction, in fashion, in materials, in chemicals. There are so many topics to analyze, study, to be also a watchdog. What is going on in the Amazon, or how we are doing mining, sustainable mining, how we do recycling at global level. There's so
So
many
all
things.
these things are available in this book, so you can just find
Yeah, we
everything here.
try to, but also we need more and more journalists. We need more resources. We need, yeah. And also, I think we need better training with environmental journalists. We have a lot of young journalists coming to us say, "I want to work with you," but most of them they lack the scientific training and economic training to do the jobs. If you are a company or a foundation, please invest in supporting environmental journalism and create a good training for environmental journalists.
Okay, my next question for you is that how do you stay updated on the latest developments in energy and sustainability?
Well, Of course, we read our own magazine, so I read what my journalists write about it. As journalists, of course, for us, the main sources are the primary sources, so politician, institutions, companies. So we don't read really other magazines. We go to the primary sources. Then, of course, there are a lot of major newspapers we always have a look at, for example, Bloomberg or The Economist. But usually we try to rely on primary sources just to make sure that our journalism is not influenced by other media, other magazines, and also to make sure that we have the news first. So we break the news and write it before the others do.
Okay. Okay. My next question for you is that it's very interesting also. So, Emmanuel, what advice would you like to give to aspiring journalists who want to specialize in environmental reporting?
I think they first have to choose a niche, so a specific topic that they can excel into it. Today, environmental journalism is so wide because you talk about science, economy, disasters, politics, global commerce. It's really a transversal topic. But the most important things is first finding your niche, become an expert, read about it, talk with many experts, maybe even do a small master, a small course that can really put you on the spot about your capability of dealing with that specific issue. And then, of course, you need to travel. I see way too many young journalists that just stay in their rooms and read, but that's a great thing to do, but then you need to see how the world works really. So, get into place, mingle with politicians, mingle with businesses, with scientists, see how no climate negotiation works, see how Washington works, go to India, visit the transition in India, in China, in Europe. Traveling is the best teacher that can, complete your training as a journalist, travel and meet people and be on the ground, because we always talk about global and complex topics.
Okay, my next question is can you share any insights from your PhD research in history and geography that influence your work?
I had the luck of carrying on a PhD while I was already a journalist that focused on the history of science and policy related to climate change in my own country, Italy. And that was very useful, not only to meet very important scientists and politicians that dealt with the issue, so I helped to create a network of experts, but also gave me the opportunity to become very insightful on, for example, climate negotiation. I've been covering climate negotiation, the COPs, the United Nations climate negotiations since 50 years, and I think today I can excel in that type of reporting. I think one of the best sources you can have on those. So PhD is very useful to create very high quality knowledge about a key specific topic.
Okay, very interesting. So if anybody's not planning to do the PhD now, they can plan because it will benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, it's journalists have an advantage because they are a fast writer. So to write your PhD thesis, you're probably much faster than other academics, and that helps in the process.
Okay, my very last question for you is that what are your future goals and projects in journalism and environmental advocacy?
Well, the goal for my magazine is that we want to become a leading economic magazine where we will not be defining ourselves as circular, sustainable, renewable magazine, but the economy will need to be circular, regenerative, etc. So we are working to really become an international media to increase the impact our magazine has on businesses, politicians, and so on. And it's a hard, complex time from what we see, especially in the US, but also in Europe. I think it's time for a restoration of old oil politics. So I think we have to double down on our effort to do environmental reporting and to show the potential, the opportunities, the economic and social and human opportunities that the green transition can have on our societies throughout the world. So I think it's a great time to be a journalist. I think our work is more necessary than ever.
Thank you so much for giving your precious time, Emmanuel. And it was a pleasure to take your interview. And don't forget to sign up on the Fublis website.